The blood was still fresh on her dress when Fiona Fairchild plunged into the snowdrift, the wind tearing at her clothes with icy fingers that felt almost as cruel as the hands she was running from. Behind her, somewhere in the whiteout blizzard that had descended upon the Idaho mountains, Marcus was hunting her with the methodical determination of a man who believed his wife belonged to him even after the law had declared otherwise. The snow rose to her waist with every desperate step, and her lungs burned with the effort of pulling herself forward through the frozen wasteland that stretched endlessly before her. She had left Ruby City 3 hours ago when the storm was just beginning, when she still believed she could reach her sister in the neighboring town before Marcus discovered she had defied his orders to stay put in the boarding house where he had cornered her that morning. Her fingers had gone numb inside her thin gloves, and the shawl wrapped around her shoulders did nothing to keep out the brutal cold of the December afternoon. It was 1881, and women were supposed to endure their circumstances with grace and dignity, but Fiona had learned 6 months ago that grace and dignity meant nothing when your husband's fists found your ribs in the dark. The divorce had been granted in September, a scandal that had followed her from Denver to this remote mining town in the Idaho Territory, but Marcus had never accepted the judge's decree. He had followed her here, tracked her down through 2 states, and countless lies she had told about her destination. And now he was somewhere behind her in this frozen hell, probably following her tracks before the snow could cover them completely. She fell forward into a drift and felt the cold seep through her skirts, soaking her to the bone. Her dark hair, once pinned neatly beneath her bonnet, now hung in frozen strands around her face. She was 23 years old, and she was going to die out here in the snow because she had been foolish enough to believe she could outrun a man who had promised to kill her before he would let her go. Then she saw it, a dark shape emerging from the white curtain of snow, the outline of a barn standing solid and real against the storm. Beyond it, barely visible, stood a ranch house with smoke rising from its chimney. Fiona pulled herself forward with renewed strength, ignoring the way her legs screamed in protest, ignoring the numbness spreading through her feet. The barn was closer than the house, and she could hear Marcus's voice now, calling her name through the wind with false tenderness that made her stomach turn. She reached the barn door and pulled it open with strength born of pure desperation. The warmth inside hit her like a physical force, the smell of hay and horses and leather filling her frozen lungs. She stumbled inside and pulled the door closed behind her, just as she heard Marcus's footsteps crunching through the snow somewhere terrifyingly close. Her whole body shook, and she pressed herself against the wall beside the door, praying he had not seen her enter. "Well now, that is quite an entrance." Fiona spun around, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. A man stood in the center of the barn, a pitchfork in his hands, and an expression of surprise on his weathered face. He was tall, perhaps 26 or 27, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of smoke. He wore the clothes of a working rancher, heavy wool pants, a thick shirt rolled up at the sleeves despite the cold, and boots that had seen years of hard use. There was something solid about him, something that spoke of a man who knew his place in the world and did not question it. "Please," Fiona whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, he cannot find me here. He will kill me this time. I know he will." The man's expression changed immediately, his eyes sharpening as he took in her appearance, the blood on her dress, the bruises blooming purple on her jaw, the wild terror in her eyes. He set down the pitchfork and moved toward her with careful steps, the way someone might approach a wounded animal. "Who is after you?" "My ex-husband. He followed me from Ruby City." "Please, I will leave as soon as the storm passes, but if he finds me now—" A fist pounded on the barn door, making Fiona jump so violently she nearly fell. Marcus's voice came through the wood, loud and commanding. "Open up! I am looking for my wife. She ran off in the storm. I need to bring her home before she freezes to death." The cowboy looked at Fiona, then at the door, and something hardened in his expression. He pointed toward the back of the barn, where a ladder led up to the hayloft. Up there. Hide yourself in the hay and do not make a sound, no matter what you hear. Fiona did not wait to be told twice. She scrambled up the ladder, her frozen fingers barely able to grip the rungs, and buried herself deep in the loose hay at the back of the loft. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain Marcus would hear it, but she forced herself to remain absolutely still as she heard the barn door open below. "Can I help you?" The cowboy's voice was calm, even friendly, with no hint that anything unusual had just occurred. "I am looking for my wife." Marcus's voice was smooth now, the voice he used when he wanted something from someone. "She is not well. The cold has made her confused. She wandered off from town, and I have been following her tracks. They lead right to your barn. I have been working in here for the past hour. I have not seen any woman. Her tracks lead directly to your door. The storm is getting worse. Tracks can be deceiving in weather like this. Perhaps they led past my barn, and you lost them in the drifts." There was a long silence. Fiona could hear her own breathing, ragged and too loud, and she pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle the sound. Through a crack in the floorboards, she could see Marcus standing just inside the door, his coat covered in snow, his face red from the cold, and from anger barely held in check. He was a handsome man, which had been part of the problem. People always believed handsome men over women with bruises. "I would like to look around, if you do not mind." "I do mind, actually." The cowboy's voice had changed, gone hard as iron. "This is private property, and I do not take kindly to strangers demanding to search my barn. If your wife came through here, she did not stop. Now I suggest you move along before the storm gets worse and you end up frozen solid." Marcus took a step forward. "I have a legal right to find my wife." "Ex-wife, you said earlier." The cowboy had noticed the slip. "Which means you have no legal right to her at all. And even if you did, you still have no right to be on my property without my permission. The law is clear on that, friend." "I am not your friend." "No, I do not suppose you are. But you are going to leave my barn now, one way or another." Fiona saw the cowboy's hand move to his hip, where a revolver hung in a worn holster. Marcus saw it too, and his body went very still. Through the crack in the floorboards, Fiona could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, the weighing of options and risks. "What is your name?" Marcus asked finally. "Isaac Dalton. This is my ranch. I will remember that name. You do that, and I will remember yours, just in case anything unfortunate happens around here in the coming days." Marcus stared at Isaac for a long moment, and Fiona held her breath until her lungs ached. Then Marcus turned and walked out of the barn, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the hinges. Fiona remained frozen in the hayloft, not daring to move, not daring to believe she was actually safe. Isaac waited a full 5 minutes before he spoke. "He is gone." I watched him head back toward town through the window. Fiona climbed down from the loft on shaking legs. When she reached the ground, her knees gave out, and she would have fallen if Isaac had not caught her. He steadied her with strong hands, then quickly stepped back, giving her space. "Thank you," she whispered. "I do not know how to thank you enough. You can start by coming inside and getting warm before you lose any fingers to frostbite. Then you can tell me the whole story, and we will figure out what to do next." He led her across the yard to the ranch house, moving quickly through the deepening snow. The house was modest but well kept, with a large main room that served as kitchen and living area, and what looked like 2 bedrooms off to the side. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, and the warmth made Fiona's skin prickle painfully as sensation began to return to her frozen extremities. Isaac guided her to a chair near the fire and disappeared into one of the bedrooms. He returned with a thick quilt and a pair of wool socks. "Get those wet boots off and wrap yourself in this. I will make coffee." Fiona did as she was told, her fingers fumbling with the laces of her boots. Isaac busied himself at the stove, giving her privacy to compose herself. When he finally handed her a tin cup of steaming coffee, she wrapped both hands around it and felt tears prick her eyes at the simple kindness of the gesture. "My name is Fiona Fairchild," she said when she could trust her voice. "I was married to Marcus Fairchild for 2 years before I was granted a divorce last September in Denver. He did not take it well. I gathered that from the bruises on your face." Fiona touched her jaw self-consciously. "These are from this morning. He found me at the boarding house in Ruby City, where I have been staying. I thought I had been careful, thought I had covered my tracks, but he always finds me. I was trying to reach my sister in Silver Creek when the storm hit. Silver Creek is 20 miles from here. You would have died trying to reach it in this weather." "I know that now." She took a sip of the coffee, feeling it burn all the way down. "I did not know what else to do. I just knew I had to run." Isaac sat down across from her, his long legs stretched out toward the fire. "What did he do to you, besides the obvious?" Fiona hesitated, then decided that this man who had risked his own safety to hide her deserved the truth. "He started hitting me about 6 months after we were married. Small things at first, things I could hide or explain away. Then it got worse. He broke my arm last winter. Told everyone I had fallen on the ice. When I tried to leave him, he locked me in our house for 3 days without food." She looked down at her hands. "I finally managed to get to the courthouse and file for divorce. The judge was sympathetic, thank God. But Marcus swore he would never let me go. He said I belonged to him and the law could not change that. The law might not be able to stop him, but I can." Isaac's voice was quiet but fierce. "You can stay here until the storm passes, and it is safe for you to travel. I will make sure he does not come back." "You do not even know me. Why would you put yourself in danger for a stranger?" Isaac looked at her for a long moment, and Fiona saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not pity, which she had grown to hate, but a kind of recognition, as if he saw her as a person rather than a victim. "My mother left my father when I was 10 years old," he said finally. "Took me and my sister and ran in the middle of the night because she knew if she stayed, one of us would end up dead. No one helped her. Everyone in town knew what my father was, but no one wanted to get involved. We nearly starved that first winter because she had no money and no skills and nowhere to turn." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I swore when I was old enough to do something about it. I would never turn away someone who needed help. So here we are." Fiona felt something crack open in her chest, some tight knot of fear and loneliness that had been growing there for months. "What happened to your mother?" "She made a life for us, took in laundry and sewing, worked herself to the bone, but she kept us fed and safe. She died 5 years ago. Pneumonia. But she died free, and that meant something to her." He stood and moved to the window, looking out at the storm. "My sister is married now, living in Oregon with a good man who treats her right. And I have this ranch, small as it is. We all survived, which is more than we would have done if we had stayed. I am sorry about your mother. So am I. But she taught me that sometimes running is the bravest thing you can do." He turned back to face her. "You are safe here, Fiona. I give you my word on that." The storm lasted 3 days. During that time, Fiona lived in Isaac's ranch house, sleeping in his sister's old room and helping with the cooking and cleaning because she could not bear to be idle. Isaac spent most of his time tending to his horses and the small herd of cattle he kept, coming in only for meals and to sleep. They fell into an easy rhythm, the kind of domestic partnership that should have felt strange with a man she barely knew, but somehow did not. On the second day, while Isaac was out in the barn, Fiona explored the house more thoroughly. It was clear that he lived alone and had for some time. The furniture was simple but well made, and everything was scrupulously clean in the way of a man who took pride in his home. On the mantel above the fireplace, she found a tintype photograph of a young woman who looked like Isaac around the eyes, and an older woman with a tired but kind face. His mother and sister, she assumed. There were books on a shelf in the corner, which surprised her. Most cowboys she had known could barely read, but Isaac apparently had literary aspirations. She found volumes of Shakespeare, a well-worn copy of Washington Irving's stories, and several books on horse breeding and ranch management. She was paging through a collection of Whitman's poems when Isaac came back inside, stamping snow off his boots. "You read Whitman?" she asked, holding up the book. Isaac looked almost embarrassed. "My mother taught me to read, said education was the only thing no one could take away from you. I have been collecting books since I bought this place 4 years ago. I love Whitman. Marcus thought reading was a waste of time for a woman. He burned my books when we were married." Isaac's face darkened. "He sounds like a real son of a—" He caught himself. "Sorry, that is not appropriate language. I have heard worse. I have thought worse." Fiona set the book down carefully. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why have you never married? You have a good home, land. You seem like a decent man. Most men your age are already settled with families." Isaac was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "I came close once, girl I knew from town, but when it came time to actually propose, I realized I did not love her the way a man should love his wife. I liked her well enough, but I could not imagine spending every day for the rest of my life with her. It seemed dishonest to marry her feeling that way." He glanced at Fiona. "I suppose I have been waiting to feel something real, something worth building a life on. My parents did not have that, and I watched what it did to both of them. I decided I would rather be alone than trapped in a marriage that felt like a prison." Fiona thought about her own marriage, about the way Marcus had courted her with flowers and pretty words, and how quickly those things had turned to accusations and violence. "I thought I loved Marcus when I married him. Or maybe I just loved the idea of being married, of having someone to belong to. My parents died when I was 19, and I felt so alone in the world. Marcus seemed like an answer to that loneliness." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I was so stupid." "You were not stupid. He lied to you. That is not your fault. I should have seen the signs. Everyone always says there are signs." Isaac moved closer, and Fiona looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "I have known men like Marcus my whole life. Men who are charming in public and monsters in private. They are good at hiding what they are. That is how they get away with it for so long. You did nothing wrong except trust someone who did not deserve it." No one had ever said that to her before. The judge who granted her divorce had done so with a lecture about wifely duties and the sanctity of marriage. The women at the boarding house whispered about her behind their hands, wondering what she had done to drive her husband to such behavior. Even her own sister had suggested that perhaps if Fiona had been more patient, more understanding, things might have been different. But Isaac looked at her like she was the victim of a crime, not the perpetrator of some moral failing. He looked at her like she mattered. "Thank you," she said softly, "for saying that, for believing me. I have no reason not to believe you." He reached out as if to touch her hand, then seemed to think better of it and pulled back. "Besides, I saw your face when that man was at the barn door. That kind of fear does not come from nowhere." That night, Fiona lay awake in the small bedroom, listening to the wind howl outside and thinking about the man in the next room. Isaac Dalton was nothing like Marcus. Where Marcus had been smooth and polished, Isaac was rough around the edges. Where Marcus had been quick with compliments and grand gestures, Isaac was quiet and measured in his words. But there was a steadiness to Isaac, a core of integrity that she could sense even after knowing him for only a few days. She told herself not to be foolish. She had just escaped one marriage. The last thing she needed was to develop feelings for the first kind man she encountered. But as she drifted off to sleep, she found herself thinking about the way Isaac's eyes crinkled when he smiled, and the gentle way he handled his horses, and the sound of his voice reading aloud from Whitman after dinner. On the third day, the storm finally broke. Fiona woke to brilliant sunshine streaming through the window and the sound of Isaac chopping wood outside. She dressed quickly and went to the kitchen to start breakfast, a routine she had fallen into over the past days. When Isaac came inside, his cheeks red from the cold, she had eggs and bacon ready and coffee brewing on the stove. Roads should be clear enough to travel by tomorrow, Isaac said as he sat down at the table. I will take you to Silver Creek if you want. Make sure you get to your sister safely. Fiona's hand stilled on the coffee pot. That is very kind of you. You have already done so much. It is no trouble. I need to go into town anyway for supplies. Silver Creek is not much out of the way. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and Fiona tried to ignore the sinking feeling in her stomach. Of course she needed to leave. She could not stay here forever, living in Isaac's house like some kind of permanent house guest. Her sister was expecting her, and she needed to start building a new life somewhere Marcus could not find her. But the thought of leaving this warm house, of saying goodbye to Isaac and never seeing him again, felt wrong in a way she could not quite explain. Isaac, she said finally, what you have done for me these past few days, hiding me, keeping me safe, it means more to me than I can say. I know I can never repay you, but if there is anything— You do not owe me anything, Isaac interrupted. I did what anyone decent would do. We both know that is not true. Most people would have turned me away, or worse, handed me over to Marcus. She set down her fork. You risked your own safety for a stranger. That is not something I will forget. Isaac looked uncomfortable with her gratitude, and Fiona realized he was not a man accustomed to being thanked. He did what he thought was right and expected nothing in return. It was a stark contrast to Marcus, who had kept a mental ledger of every kind gesture, every gift, every perceived slight, and used it to control her. After breakfast, Isaac announced that he needed to ride the property line to check for damage from the storm. You can stay here where it is warm. I will be back before dark. Can I come with you? Isaac looked surprised. It is cold out there, and the snow is deep. It will not be a comfortable ride. I have been cooped up inside for 3 days. I need to see something besides these 4 walls, no matter how lovely they are. She hesitated. Unless you would prefer to go alone. No, I would be glad for the company. But you will need warmer clothes. I think my sister left some things here that might fit you. He disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a heavy wool coat, thicker gloves, and a pair of men's trousers. I know it is not proper for a lady, but you cannot ride in skirts through snow this deep. Fiona took the clothes without hesitation. Propriety seemed like a small concern compared to frostbite. When she emerged from the bedroom wearing the trousers and coat, Isaac's eyebrows rose, but he said nothing. They walked together to the barn, and Isaac saddled 2 horses, a large bay gelding for himself and a smaller chestnut mare for Fiona. This is Rosie, Isaac said, patting the mare's neck. She is gentle and sure-footed. She will take care of you. Fiona mounted carefully, her body remembering the riding lessons her father had given her as a child. It had been years since she had been on a horse. Marcus had not allowed it, claiming it was too dangerous. But as they rode out into the glittering white landscape, she felt something lift inside her chest. The sky was impossibly blue, and the mountains rose up around them like sentinels. The world was enormous and beautiful, and for the first time in years, Fiona felt like she could breathe. They rode in comfortable silence, stopping occasionally for Isaac to inspect fences or check on cattle that had sheltered in the trees during the storm. Fiona watched the way he moved, confident and competent, a man completely at ease in his environment. He pointed out landmarks and told her stories about the land, how he had bought it with money saved from years of cowboy work, how he had built the house and barn with his own hands. It is not much, he said, but it is mine. No one can take it from me. It is beautiful, Fiona said honestly. You should be proud. They stopped on a ridge overlooking the valley, and Isaac pulled out a canteen of water to share. Below them, the ranch spread out in miniature, the house with its smoking chimney, The barn, the corrals, the pastures white with snow. It looked peaceful and safe, like something out of a picture book. Can I ask you something? Fiona said, taking a sip of water. What will you do if Marcus comes back? Isaac's jaw tightened. I will deal with him. He is dangerous, Isaac. He is not going to just give up and go away. Neither am I. Isaac looked at her, his gray eyes serious. I meant what I said. You are safe here. If he comes back, he will have to go through me to get to you. I do not want you to get hurt because of me. Then it is a good thing I can take care of myself. He returned the canteen to his saddlebag. I am not afraid of men like Marcus. I have dealt with bullies before. They are all the same underneath. Cowards who only feel strong when they are hurting someone weaker than themselves. They started back toward the house, and Fiona found herself studying Isaac's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair curled slightly at his collar. He was handsome in a rugged way that was nothing like Marcus's polished good looks. But more than that, he was good. She could see it in everything he did, every word he spoke. He was the kind of man who helped strangers in snowstorms and defended those who could not defend themselves and read poetry by the fire at night. She was falling for him. The realization hit her like a physical blow, leaving her breathless and terrified. It was too soon, too fast, too dangerous. She barely knew him. She was still legally recovering from a marriage that had nearly destroyed her. She had no business developing feelings for anyone, least of all her rescuer. But her heart did not seem to care about logic or timing or any of the very good reasons she should keep her distance. Her heart only knew that when Isaac smiled at her, she felt warm all the way through. When he read to her in the evenings, his deep voice stumbling slightly over the more emotional passages, she wanted to listen forever. When he had caught her as she climbed down from the hayloft, his hands strong and careful on her waist, she had wanted him to pull her closer instead of stepping away. That night, after dinner, Isaac built up the fire and settled into his usual chair with a book. Fiona took her customary seat across from him and picked up the mending she had been working on, one of Isaac's shirts that had torn at the shoulder. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the occasional turn of a page. Isaac, Fiona said suddenly, setting down her sewing. Why did you really help me? The truth this time. Isaac looked up from his book, surprise flickering across his face. I told you the truth. My mother... I know what you told me about your mother, and I believe that is part of it. But there is something else, is there not? Some other reason you were willing to risk everything for a woman you had never met. Isaac closed his book slowly and set it aside. For a long moment, he just looked at her, and Fiona saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. It was not pity or even kindness. It was something deeper, something that made her heart race. I suppose, he said carefully, that when I saw you come through that barn door, terrified and hurt and still fighting, I saw someone worth saving, someone who deserved better than what she had been given. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. And maybe I was tired of being alone. Maybe I wanted to believe that doing the right thing might lead to something good for once. What do you mean? I mean that I have been alone in this house for 4 years, telling myself I was content with my books and my horses and my land. But the truth is, I have been lonely. And then you showed up, and suddenly my house felt like a home again. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated with himself. I know this is not the time or place. You are recovering from a terrible situation, and the last thing you need is me complicating things. But you asked for the truth, and the truth is that I am glad you are here. I am glad I found you in that barn. And the thought of you leaving tomorrow makes me realize just how empty this place is going to feel when you are gone. Fiona's heart was pounding so hard she was certain Isaac could hear it. I do not want to leave. The words were out before she could stop them, hanging in the air between them like something fragile and precious. Isaac stared at her, his eyes wide with surprise and something that might have been hope. "You do not mean that. You have a sister waiting for you, a new life to start." "I mean it." Fiona stood and crossed to where Isaac sat, kneeling down so they were at eye level. "These past 3 days, being here with you, have been the first time I have felt safe in years, the first time I have felt like myself. I know it is too soon, and I know I should not be feeling what I am feeling, but I cannot help it." She took a deep breath. "When I look at you, I do not see someone who wants to control me or hurt me. I see someone who makes me want to stop running and start living again." Isaac reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face gently in his calloused hand. His thumb traced the edge of the bruise on her jaw, and Fiona saw anger flash in his eyes, not at her but for her. "If you stay," he said quietly, "I cannot promise it will be easy. This is a hard life out here, especially in winter. The ranch barely makes enough to keep me fed most years. And Marcus is not going to give up easily. He will keep looking for you. I know. But if you stay, I promise I will spend every day trying to be worthy of your trust. I will never raise a hand to you. I will never try to control you or make you feel small. And I will do everything in my power to keep you safe." Fiona felt tears prick her eyes. "That is all I want. Safety and kindness and a chance to build something real." Isaac leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, the gesture so tender it made Fiona's chest ache. "Then stay. Please stay." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will stay." They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing together in the firelight. Then Isaac pulled back and smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face into something almost boyish. "I should send word to your sister that you are safe. She must be worried sick. I will write her a letter tomorrow. I will tell her I have found somewhere to stay, somewhere I can be happy." That night, Fiona lay in bed and thought about the strange turn her life had taken. A week ago, she had been running through a blizzard, certain she was going to die. Now she was lying in a warm bed in a house that was starting to feel like home, thinking about a man who read poetry and treated her like she was made of something precious. The world was unpredictable and sometimes cruel, but it could also be unexpectedly kind. The next morning, Isaac rode into Ruby City alone. He needed to get supplies, and as he told Fiona before he left, to make sure Marcus had actually left town. Fiona spent the day cleaning the house and baking bread, trying to keep her hands busy so she would not worry. When Isaac finally returned in the late afternoon, his expression was grim. "What happened?" Fiona asked as he dismounted. "Marcus is still in town, staying at the saloon and asking questions about me, about whether I have a wife or sister, whether anyone has seen a woman matching your description." Isaac unsaddled his horse with jerky movements that betrayed his anger. "The bartender is a friend of mine. He said Marcus has been drinking heavily and talking about teaching me a lesson for interfering in his business." Fiona felt cold despite the warm coat she wore. "He is planning something. Let him plan. I have friends in Ruby City too. The sheriff is a good man. I spoke with him this morning and told him the situation. He said if Marcus causes any trouble, he will throw him in jail. The law did not stop him before. Maybe not, but the combination of the law and a shotgun usually does the trick." Isaac took her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "I am not going to let him hurt you, Fiona. I need you to believe that." "I do believe you. I just do not want you to get hurt because of me. That is not your decision to make. I am choosing to help you, knowing the risks. You do not have to carry that guilt." Over the following weeks, Fiona settled into life at the ranch with an ease that surprised her. She had expected to feel restless or afraid, constantly looking over her shoulder for Marcus. But as the days passed and he did not appear, she began to relax. She and Isaac developed routines, sharing the work of running the ranch and the house. She cooked and mended and helped with the lighter chores, while Isaac managed the cattle and horses and the heavy labor. They talked constantly, sharing stories of their pasts and dreams for their futures. Isaac told her about his childhood, about the fear that had permeated his early years, and the relief he had felt when his mother finally found the courage to leave. Fiona told him about her own family, about the parents she had lost too young, and the sister who had been her anchor through the worst of her marriage. She wrote to her sister explaining that she had found a safe place to stay and would visit when the weather improved. Her sister's response came 3 weeks later, full of relief and cautious optimism. She wrote that she was glad Fiona had found refuge, but worried about the man Fiona mentioned in her letter, this rancher who had taken her in. Fiona wrote back assuring her that Isaac was trustworthy, that he had asked for nothing in return for his kindness, that she was happier than she had been in years. Christmas came and went quietly. Isaac rode into town and returned with a small fir tree that they decorated with strings of popcorn and paper ornaments Fiona made from old newspapers. On Christmas morning, Isaac gave her a pair of leather gloves he had clearly spent hours crafting himself, soft and perfectly fitted to her hands. Fiona gave him a new shirt she had sewn from fabric she found in the back of a closet, dark blue with careful stitching along the collar and cuffs. "It is perfect," Isaac said, running his fingers over the fabric. "I cannot remember the last time someone made something for me." "Get used to it," Fiona replied with a smile. "I have to do something to earn my keep." "You do not have to earn anything. You belong here." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Fiona knew what Isaac was not saying, what they had both been carefully avoiding for weeks. They cared for each other, that much was obvious. But neither of them had been brave enough to take the next step, to turn their mutual affection into something more. That night, after dinner, they sat by the fire as usual. Isaac was pretending to read, but Fiona could see that he had not turned a page in 20 minutes. She set down her own book and stood, crossing to where he sat. When she reached out her hand, Isaac looked up at her with surprise and something that might have been hope. "Dance with me," she said. "There is no music. We do not need music." Isaac stood and took her hand, pulling her gently into his arms. They swayed together in the firelight, not really dancing, but just holding each other, and Fiona felt something settle into place inside her chest. This was what she had been missing her whole life, not grand gestures or pretty words, but this quiet intimacy, this feeling of being exactly where she belonged. "Fiona?" Isaac said quietly, his breath warm against her hair. "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I am falling in love with you. I probably have been since the moment you came through my barn door, looking like some kind of avenging angel covered in snow." He pulled back enough to look at her, his gray eyes serious. "I know it is too soon, and I know you have been through hell, but I cannot keep pretending I do not feel what I feel. You make me want things I thought I had given up on. A partner, a family, a future that is more than just me and my horses and my empty house." Fiona reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble under her palm. "I am falling in love with you too. I have been fighting it because I was afraid, because I thought I was not ready, because I did not trust myself after Marcus. But the truth is, what I feel for you is nothing like what I felt for him. With Marcus, I was always trying to be smaller, quieter, less. With you, I feel like I can be myself, like I can be more than I ever thought possible." Isaac's hands tightened on her waist. "I want to do this right. I want to court you properly, give you time to be sure. I do not want you to think I helped you because I expected something in return. I know you did not. That is one of the reasons I love you." The words were out before Fiona could second guess them. "I love you." 3 words that carried the weight of a promise, a leap of faith, a choice to risk her heart one more time. Isaac's face transformed, joy breaking across his features like sunrise. "Say it again. I love you, Isaac Dalton." He kissed her then, soft and careful, as if she were something that might break. Fiona kissed him back, letting herself fall into the moment, into the feeling of being cherished instead of controlled. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard, and Isaac's eyes were dark with emotion. "I love you," he said. "I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that you made the right choice." January brought bitter cold and more snow, but inside the ranch house, Fiona felt nothing but warmth. She and Isaac grew closer each day, their relationship deepening in the quiet, steady way of two people learning to trust each other completely. He continued to court her with a gentleness that made her heart ache, bringing her wildflowers he found in sheltered spots, reading to her by the fire, teaching her to care for the horses and mend tack. They were careful not to move too fast physically, both of them aware that Fiona needed time to heal from the trauma of her marriage. But the emotional intimacy between them was profound. Fiona found herself telling Isaac things she had never told anyone, fears and hopes and dreams she had kept locked away. And Isaac opened up to her in return, sharing the parts of himself he had protected for so long. In late January, Fiona was in the kitchen making stew when she heard the sound of horses approaching. She looked out the window and saw Isaac walking back from the barn, his shotgun in his hands. Her stomach dropped. "Get in the bedroom and lock the door," Isaac said when he came inside, his voice calm but urgent. "Who is it?" "Marcus. And he has 3 men with him." Fiona's hands started shaking, but she forced herself to move. She went into the bedroom and locked the door, then positioned herself by the window where she could see the yard. 4 men rode up to the house, Marcus in the lead. Even from a distance, Fiona could see that he was drunk, swaying in his saddle. Isaac stepped out onto the porch, the shotgun held loosely in his hands. "This is private property. You are not welcome here." Marcus dismounted, his movements clumsy. "I know she is in there. I know you have been hiding my wife." "She's not your wife. The law was clear on that. And even if she were, she does not want to see you. You need to leave before this gets ugly." "Before it gets ugly?" Marcus laughed, a harsh sound that made Fiona flinch. "You have been harboring my property for weeks, making me look like a fool, and you are worried about things getting ugly? She is not property. She is a human being who has a right to choose her own life, and she has chosen to have nothing to do with you." One of the men with Marcus, a large brute with a scar across his cheek, spat into the snow. "That is a lot of talk from one man facing 4 of us. Numbers do not matter much when I am holding a shotgun and you are all out in the open." Isaac's voice was steady. "Now, I am going to give you one chance to turn around and ride out of here. If you do not take it, things are going to end badly for someone, and I can promise you it will not be me." Marcus took a step forward, and Isaac raised the shotgun. The click of the hammer cocking was loud in the cold air. "I mean it, Marcus. I will defend this ranch and everyone on it. The law will back me up. The sheriff in Ruby City knows you are here making threats. If something happens to me, he will know exactly where to look." For a long moment, no one moved. Fiona held her breath, her heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. Then one of Marcus's companions, an older man with gray in his beard, put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "This is not worth it, Fairchild. Let her go. There are other women." "She is my wife?" Marcus snarled, but Fiona could hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. "Ex-wife," Isaac corrected. "And if you do not leave right now, I am going to start shooting. I will aim for the horses first, leave you all stranded out here in the cold. Then we will see how brave you feel." The gray-bearded man had already started backing toward his horse. "I am not dying for your pride, Fairchild. I am out." The other 2 men exchanged glances, then followed. Marcus stood alone in the yard, his face red with rage and humiliation. "This is not over." "Yes, it is," Isaac said firmly. "You lost, Marcus. You lost the moment she found the courage to leave you. Now get on your horse and get off my land before I lose my patience." Marcus stared at Isaac for a long moment, then at the house where he knew Fiona was watching. Fiona felt the weight of his gaze even through the window, the possessiveness and rage that had driven him to follow her across 2 states. But for the first time, she did not feel afraid. She felt sad for him and angry and grateful that she had escaped. Finally, Marcus mounted his horse and turned to leave. But before he rode off, he He called back, "He will get tired of you eventually. They always do. And when he does, you will have nowhere left to run." Then he was gone, disappearing into the trees with his hired men. Isaac stood on the porch for a long time, the shotgun still in his hands, making sure they were really gone. Only when the sound of hoofbeats had faded completely did he lower the gun and come back inside. Fiona met him in the main room, and without a word, he pulled her into his arms. She clung to him, feeling the fear she had been holding back finally break free. She cried into his chest, great shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her, and Isaac just held her and let her cry. "It is over," he murmured into her hair. "He is gone and he is not coming back. I promise you, Fiona, he will never hurt you again." "How can you be sure?" "Because men like Marcus are cowards at heart. He will not risk a real fight, not when he knows he will lose. And he knows now that he will lose if he comes back here." Fiona wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel safe. But years of living with Marcus had taught her that he never gave up, that he always found a way to hurt her no matter how carefully she tried to protect herself. As if reading her thoughts, Isaac tilted her face up to look at him. "Listen to me. I know you are afraid. I know he has given you every reason to expect the worst. But I am telling you, as someone who has dealt with men like him before, he is done. You saw him out there. He was drunk and desperate and surrounded by men who would not back him up. He is pathetic, Fiona. He has no power over you anymore. But what if? No what ifs. We will deal with problems if they come. But we are not going to live our lives in fear of a man who does not deserve another moment of your thoughts." Isaac kissed her forehead gently. "You are free, Fiona. Really and truly free. It is time to start believing it." In the days that followed, Fiona found that Isaac was right. Slowly, the constant tension she had been carrying began to ease. She stopped jumping at every sound, stopped looking over her shoulder every time she went outside. The sheriff from Ruby City rode out to check on them a week later and confirmed that Marcus had left town, heading back toward Denver according to the station master. "He looked like a beaten man," the sheriff said, as he accepted a cup of coffee from Fiona. "I do not think he will be back. And if he is, you have witnesses now. You have people who know what he is and will testify against him if it comes to that." As winter slowly gave way to early spring, Fiona began to truly believe that she had escaped, that this new life she was building with Isaac was real and permanent. The ranch came alive with the changing season, and Fiona threw herself into the work with enthusiasm. She helped Isaac with the cattle, learned to ride better, started a vegetable garden in the sunny spot behind the house. In March, Isaac rode into town and came back with a letter from Fiona's sister, begging her to visit now that the roads were passable. Fiona wrote back immediately, inviting her sister to come to the ranch instead. When her sister arrived 2 weeks later, accompanied by her husband and two small children, Fiona felt a completeness she had not experienced in years. Her sister cried when she saw her, holding Fiona tight and whispering how worried she had been. "Look at you," her sister said, holding Fiona at arm's length. "You look so different, healthy and happy and—" She glanced at Isaac, who was helping her husband with the horses. "He is the one, is not he? The rancher you wrote about. His name is Isaac, and yes, he is the one." Her sister smiled, a knowing expression on her face. "Good. It is about time you found someone worthy of you." During the visit, Fiona's sister pulled her aside one evening while Isaac and her brother-in-law were outside. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "I mean, really sure? After everything with Marcus, I would understand if you wanted to stay away from marriage altogether." "I am sure," Fiona said without hesitation. "Isaac is nothing like Marcus. He makes me feel safe and valued and loved. He treats me like an equal, not like property. I know it is fast, but when something is right, you just know." "Has he asked you to marry him?" "Not yet. I think he is waiting for me to be ready." "Are you ready?" Fiona thought about it, really considered the question. Was she ready to commit herself to another man, to risk her heart and her future on the belief that this time would be different? The answer came easily without doubt or fear. Yes, I am ready. That night, after her sister's family had gone to bed, Fiona found Isaac on the porch, staring out at the stars. She came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her cheek against his back. Your sister is nice, Isaac said. Her husband seems like a good man. They are both wonderful, and they like you, in case you were wondering. That is good to know. Isaac turned in her arms to face her. Fiona, there is something I need to ask you. I have been waiting for the right moment, but I am not sure there is ever going to be a perfect time, so I am just going to say it. Fiona's heart started to race. What is it? Isaac took both of her hands in his expression serious but warm. I love you. I love everything about you. Your strength, your kindness, the way you hum while you cook, the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. I love waking up knowing you are here and going to sleep grateful that you chose to stay. And I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret that choice. He dropped to one knee, and Fiona felt tears spring to her eyes. I do not have a fancy ring or pretty words prepared, but I have a house that could be a home, land that could support a family, and a heart that is completely and utterly yours. Fiona Fairchild, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Fiona did not hesitate. Yes, yes, of course I will marry you. Isaac stood and kissed her, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. When he set her down, they were both laughing, giddy with joy and relief and the simple rightness of the moment. I will get you a ring, Isaac promised. A proper one, as soon as I can afford it. I do not need a ring. I just need you. They were married in May, in the small church in Ruby City, with Fiona's sister and her family as witnesses, along with a handful of Isaac's friends from town. Fiona wore a simple white dress that her sister had helped her make, and Isaac wore his best suit, which he admitted he had only worn twice before. The ceremony was short and sweet, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac kissed Fiona with a tenderness that made her believe in new beginnings. The wedding night, Fiona was nervous. Her experiences with Marcus had taught her to dread physical intimacy, to see it as something to be endured rather than enjoyed. But Isaac was patient and gentle, taking his time, constantly checking to make sure she was comfortable. He made it about her pleasure rather than his own, and for the first time in her life, Fiona understood what it meant to be truly intimate with someone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, two people becoming one in every sense that mattered. Afterward, lying in Isaac's arms with her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, Fiona felt a peace so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Are you all right? Isaac asked, concerned. I am perfect. I am just so happy, and I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Nothing is going to go wrong. We are going to build a good life together, Fiona. I promise you that. And they did. The years that followed were not always easy. Ranching was hard work, and there were droughts and harsh winters and times when money was tight. But through it all, Fiona and Isaac faced everything together, as partners in the truest sense. They worked side by side, built their home, expanded the ranch bit by bit. In the spring of 1883, Fiona discovered she was pregnant. She had been afraid she might not be able to have children after everything Marcus had done to her, but the doctor in Ruby City confirmed that she was indeed expecting. When she told Isaac the news, he picked her up and spun her around, just like he had the night he proposed, his face glowing with joy. We are going to be parents, he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. We are going to have a family. Their son was born in October, a healthy baby boy, with his father's gray eyes and his mother's dark hair. They named him James after Isaac's grandfather, And from the moment Fiona held him in her arms, she knew that her life was exactly as it was meant to be. Isaac was a devoted father, gentle and patient with the baby, waking up in the middle of the night to help with feedings, singing lullabies in his deep voice. 2 years later, they had a daughter, Sarah, who had her mother's stubborn streak and her father's quiet determination. The house that had once felt too big for just Isaac was now filled with the sounds of children laughing and playing, of family dinners and bedtime stories. Fiona's sister visited often, and the cousins grew up close, spending summers together on the ranch. Fiona taught Sarah to read and cook and tend the garden, while Isaac taught James to ride and care for the animals. They were a family in every sense of the word, built not on obligation or tradition, but on love and choice, and the conscious decision to be there for each other no matter what. One evening, when James was 5 and Sarah was 3, Fiona stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. Isaac came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I am thinking about how different my life is now compared to what it was. How if I had not run into that storm, if I had not found your barn, I would probably be dead by now. Or I would still be running, afraid and alone. But you are not. You are here, safe and loved and surrounded by family. Because of you. You saved my life, Isaac." Isaac turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "We saved each other, Fiona. I was barely living before you came into my life. I was just going through the motions, existing but not really alive. You gave me purpose and joy and a reason to believe in something beyond just surviving." Fiona reached up and touched his face, this man who had become her whole world. "I love you. I love you too. Always have, always will." They stood there together as the sun set, watching their children play in the yard, and Fiona felt a gratitude so deep it was almost overwhelming. She had escaped hell and found heaven. She had run through a blizzard and discovered a home. She had been broken and had healed, had been afraid and had found courage, had been alone and had found love. The years continued to pass in a blur of seasons and milestones. James and Sarah grew into strong, capable young people who knew they were loved and valued. The ranch prospered under Isaac and Fiona's careful management, growing from a small operation to one of the most respected in the region. They added more cattle, more land, built a bigger barn, and expanded the house to accommodate their growing family. In 1890, Fiona's sister passed away unexpectedly from a fever, and Fiona and Isaac took in her 3 children without hesitation. The house became even more chaotic, filled with 5 children ranging in age from 7 to 15, but Fiona would not have had it any other way. Family was everything, and these children needed a home. Isaac proved to be just as devoted to his nieces and nephew as he was to his own children. He treated them all equally, making sure each child felt loved and valued. Fiona watched him with the children and felt her love for him grow even deeper. This was the man she had married, the man who had hidden her in his barn all those years ago when she was running for her life. He was a good man, a rare man, and she thanked God every day for leading her to him. When James turned 18, he announced his intention to stay on the ranch and help his father run it. Isaac's pride was evident, though he made sure James understood the hard work involved. Sarah, ever independent, declared she wanted to be a teacher and began studying for the examination that would allow her to teach in the local school. Fiona supported both of their choices, grateful that her children had the freedom to choose their own paths. The older of Fiona's sister's children eventually left to start their own lives, but they always came back to visit, bringing their own spouses and children. The ranch became the gathering place for holidays and celebrations, the heart of an ever-expanding family. In 1895, on a cool evening in December, Fiona and Isaac celebrated their 14th wedding anniversary. The children had prepared a special dinner, and the whole family gathered around the big table that Isaac had built years ago to accommodate their growing brood. As Fiona looked around at the faces of the people she loved, she felt tears of joy slip down her cheeks. "What is wrong, Mama?" Sarah asked, concerned. "Nothing is wrong, sweetheart. Everything is absolutely perfect." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Fiona and Isaac sat by the fireplace in their bedroom, just as they had done so many times over the years. Isaac pulled out an old wooden box and opened it, revealing a collection of small treasures. The first letter Fiona had written to her sister from the ranch, a pressed flower from their wedding, a baby tooth from each of their children, photographs and mementos from years of building a life together. "Do you remember that first night?" Isaac asked, holding up a faded ribbon that Fiona had worn in her hair the day they met. "When you came through the barn door covered in snow, looking like you were ready to fight the whole world?" "I remember being more scared than I had ever been in my life. And then I remember feeling safe for the first time in years because you believed me and helped me without asking for anything in return. I would do it all again in a heartbeat, every single moment, every choice, every challenge, because it led me to you." Fiona leaned against him, feeling his warmth and strength, the solid presence that had been her anchor for 15 years. "We have had a good life, have we not? The best life, and it is not over yet. We still have years ahead of us, God willing. Years to watch our children grow and have families of their own. Years to sit on the porch and watch the sunset. Years to love each other. That is all I have ever wanted, to love and be loved, to be safe and free, to build something lasting with someone who sees me as an equal. You are not just my equal, Fiona. You are my better half. You are the reason I get up every morning and the last thing I think about before I sleep. You are my home." Fiona turned and kissed him, a kiss that held 15 years of love and trust and partnership. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his and smiled. "I love you, Isaac Dalton. Thank you for hiding me in your barn all those years ago. Thank you for running through that blizzard and giving me a reason to become the man I always wanted to be." They sat together by the fire until it burned down to embers, talking about the past and dreaming about the future. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and gentle, covering the ranch in a blanket of white. But inside the house, all was warm and bright and filled with love. The ranch continued to thrive over the next decade. James took on more responsibility, eventually managing the day-to-day operations while Isaac focused on breeding their horses, which had become increasingly sought after throughout Idaho and the surrounding territories. Sarah became the school teacher in Ruby City and married a kind young man who worked at the general store. They built a house in town, but visited the ranch every Sunday for dinner. Fiona's nieces and nephew remained close, their own families growing and intertwining with the Daltons in a web of love and loyalty. The ranch became known not just for its quality cattle and horses, but as a place where anyone in need could find help. Isaac and Fiona took in strays of all kinds over the years, cowboys down on their luck, widows with children, even a young Shoshone woman who had been cast out from her tribe and needed a safe place to heal. Word spread that the Dalton Ranch was a place of refuge, and Fiona often thought about how fitting that was. She had been a refugee herself once, running from violence and fear, and she never forgot what Isaac's kindness had meant to her. She made sure that everyone who came to their door received the same compassion and lack of judgment that she had received all those years ago. In 1905, Fiona received word that Marcus had died in Denver, killed in a bar fight over a gambling debt. She felt nothing when she read the telegram, no satisfaction or grief or even relief. That chapter of her life was so far behind her that Marcus seemed like a character from someone else's story. She showed the telegram to Isaac, who read it silently and then set it aside. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. "There is nothing to talk about. He has been dead to me for over 20 years. This just makes it official." Isaac nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Then we will not speak of it again." And they did not. Fiona filed the telegram away in a drawer and went back to her life, to the family she had built, and the home she had made. Marcus Fairchild was a ghost from her past, powerless and irrelevant, while Isaac Dalton was her present and her future, the man she woke up next to every morning and fell asleep beside every night. Their grandchildren began to arrive, a new generation to fill the house with laughter and chaos. James and his wife had 3 children in quick succession, while Sarah eventually gave birth to twin girls. Fiona loved being a grandmother, loved watching Isaac with the babies and seeing the gentle way he held them, the wonder in his eyes at this continuation of their legacy. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren threw them a party at the ranch. The whole community came, neighbors from surrounding ranches, friends from town, people whose lives had been touched by Isaac and Fiona's kindness over the years. There was music and dancing and more food than could possibly be eaten. And as Fiona looked around at the gathering, she felt her heart might burst from happiness. Isaac led her out for a dance, and as they swayed together under the stars, Fiona thought about that young woman who had stumbled into his barn so many years ago, terrified and broken, and certain her life was over. She wanted to reach back through time and tell that woman that everything was going to be all right, that the man holding her right now was going to change everything, that happiness and safety and love were not just dreams, but real possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked, his voice warm against her ear. "I am thinking about how lucky I am, how blessed we have been. Luck had nothing to do with it. You were brave enough to run, brave enough to fight for your life, brave enough to trust me when you had every reason not to. That is not luck, Fiona. That is courage. We were both brave, and we were both lucky enough to find each other." "I will agree with that." Isaac pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes still sharp despite the lines that had formed around them over the years. "I love you, Fiona Dalton. I have loved you for 25 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. I love you too. Today, tomorrow, and always." They danced until the musicians grew tired and the guests began to leave, and then they stood on the porch of their home, watching the last wagons disappear down the road. Their children and grandchildren had stayed the night, filling every bed and spare corner with sleeping bodies, and the house felt alive in a way that made Fiona's heart sing. "We did good," Isaac said, his arm around her shoulders. "We did very good." The years continued their steady march forward. Isaac and Fiona grew older, their hair turning gray, their bodies moving a bit slower, but their love never dimming. They handed over more responsibility to James, but remained active in the ranch's operations. Isaac still working with the horses, and Fiona still managing the household and keeping everyone fed and organized. In 1910, Idaho became a state, and the territory they had known for so long officially became part of the United States. Isaac and Fiona attended the celebration in Ruby City, which had grown from a rough mining town into a proper community, with a school, a church, several stores, and even a small hospital. They saw the progress of civilization moving westward, bringing both good and bad changes, but they adapted as they always had. Sarah's daughters grew up and married, one staying in Idaho while the other moved to Oregon with her husband. James's children remained on the ranch, the boys learning the business from their father and grandfather, the youngest a girl who showed a remarkable talent for training horses. The Dalton legacy was secure, built on generations of hard work and love. In the spring of 1912, Isaac woke up one morning complaining of pain in his chest. Fiona immediately sent James for the doctor, but by the time he arrived, Isaac was already feeling better. The doctor warned that his heart was not as strong as it used to be, that he needed to take things easier and let the younger generation handle the heavy work. Isaac grumbled about it, but he followed the doctor's orders, spending more time on the porch and less time in the saddle. Fiona stayed close to him, and they spent long afternoons talking about their life together, remembering all the moments that had brought them to this place. "Do you have any regrets?" Isaac asked one day, his hand clasped in hers. "Not a single one. Well, except perhaps that I did not find you sooner, But then I suppose I would not have appreciated you properly if I had not experienced what came before. That is a generous way of looking at it. It is the truth. You taught me what love really means, Isaac. Not possession or control, but partnership and respect, and choosing each other every single day. You taught me the same thing. Before you, I thought I was content being alone. But you showed me that sharing your life with someone, really sharing it, is what makes life worth living. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their grandchildren play in the yard, and Fiona felt a completeness that went bone deep. This was what she had been searching for her whole life without knowing it. Not perfection, but peace. Not a life without challenges, but a partnership strong enough to face anything. Not a fairy tale, but something real and lasting and true. Isaac lived another 3 years, active and engaged until the very end. He died peacefully in his sleep in January 1915, with Fiona beside him, holding his hand. The whole community mourned his loss, and the funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. Fiona stood beside his grave and said goodbye to the love of her life, the man who had saved her and loved her and given her a reason to believe in goodness again. The grief was profound, a physical ache that never fully went away. But Fiona was not alone. She had her children and grandchildren, her nieces and nephew, a whole network of family that surrounded her with love and support. She remained on the ranch, still the heart of the family, still the keeper of their history and their values. She lived for another 12 years after Isaac's death, passing away peacefully in her sleep in 1927 at the age of 69. Her children found her in the morning, lying in the bed she had shared with Isaac for so many years, a peaceful expression on her face. On the nightstand beside her was the wooden box Isaac had kept, filled with mementos of their life together. They buried her next to Isaac on the hill overlooking the ranch, and the whole extended family came to pay their respects. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, their great-grandchildren ran through the grass, laughing and playing, a new generation growing up in the home that Isaac and Fiona had built. The ranch remained in the family, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation that had been laid. And while time moved forward and things changed as they always do, the core of what Isaac and Fiona had created remained, a place of love and safety where family came first and kindness mattered more than anything else. Years later, one of Fiona's great-great-granddaughters would write the family history, documenting the story of how everything began. She would start with a sentence that captured the essence of it all. It all began with a blizzard, a barn, and a cowboy who believed that doing the right thing was its own reward. And she would end with this: Isaac and Fiona Dalton built more than a ranch. They built a legacy of love that continues to this day, proof that even in the darkest moments, hope and kindness can change everything. Their story reminds us that home is not a place, but the people you choose to build a life with, and that true love is not about perfection, but about showing up for each other, day after day, year after year, no matter what challenges life brings. The ranch still stands in Idaho, now part of a state that has seen tremendous change from the rough frontier territory it once was. But on clear nights, when the wind blows through the valley and the stars shine bright overhead, some swear they can still feel the presence of Isaac and Fiona, watching over the land they loved and the family they built, their love story echoing through the generations as a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and choosing to love even when fear says to run. It was a love born in desperation, but nurtured with patience, a love that began with a woman running for her life through waist-deep snow and a cowboy who chose to hide her in his barn, a love that proved stronger than violence, fear, or the harsh realities of frontier life, a love that lasted not just until death, but beyond it, living on in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carry their blood and their values forward into an uncertain future. And if you visit the ranch today, you can still see their names carved into the door frame of the old barn, put there by Isaac himself on their first anniversary. Isaac and Fiona Dalton, 1881. Love endures. Three simple words that say everything that needs to be said. Love endures. Through blizzards and danger, through years of hard work and sacrifice, through grief and joy and everything in between, their love endured. And in enduring, it became something eternal, something that time cannot touch or diminish, something that continues to inspire everyone who hears their story. That is the legacy of the woman who ran through the snow and the cowboy who hid her in his barn. Not just a family or a ranch or a set of names on a family tree, but proof that love, real love, the kind built on respect and partnership and daily choice, can transform lives and create something beautiful out of fear and pain. Their story belongs to a time long past, to the Wild West that exists now only in memory and history books, but the truth at its heart is timeless, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust someone new, and sometimes the greatest love stories begin with a simple act of kindness in the middle of a storm.